Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll be doing this super easy Thanksgiving makeup look. Let's get right on into it. We're going to start with a totally clean base. Here are all the products that I use, and I just want to do something that's going to cover up all these little red marks that I have. So to start, I'm going to use the Smashbox primer. You only need a very tiny bit, and I'm going to start by just dabbing it around my face before I just use my fingers and spread it all out. This is one of those things you really don't need a lot of, just make sure you cover everything. And you can use a beauty blender too, but I think it's easier to use your hands here. Up next, we'll be using concealer. I'm using the Pro Conceal one, and I'm going to start by dabbing it onto my nail, but you can use a brush, and then putting it onto any little spots that I want to cover. And just to clarify for your guys' sake, I don't have a lot of bumps here, they're more like red marks. We're then going to move on to actually spreading out the concealer, following this little pattern I have here. The point is to lift all of your features upwards and outwards. This pattern, even though we're going to blend the concealer in, is still going to show a little bit underneath of your foundation. It's also important to try and make it symmetrical so that way each side gets lifted in the same way. And I also add these little smile lines. Now taking a flat, wide brush, I'm going to pull up and out every single time. So I'm doing a little bit of a dabbing motion here to spread it out first, and then I pull it upwards and out towards the hairline or my ears. You want to do this for every spot. Don't worry if there's like weird, really white bits or really light bits of your skin. It's more important that you have a little bit of that highlight showing from underneath. But make sure you're not missing any of your spots, and you want everything to look as bright as possible. So you're gonna look a little bit crazy when you're done with this part. That's very important to the whole foundation of this look. And of course, do your eyes a little bit too. You can already see how the lines are being pulled upwards on your face. Next step will be our foundation. I'm using the e.l.f. one, and I'm gonna start by dabbing a ton of it onto my hand, and then following this pattern on my face. The main purpose here is to cover the areas you didn't conceal, but also go over the concealed areas so that way we get rid of that super light finish. It becomes a little less crazy after this step. Make sure though that you're blending down your neck and onto your ears a little bit as well. While you're still going to look a little two-dimensional before we finish this part, this will start to get rid of all the crazy lines you had from concealing. When you're done, this is what it looks like up close, very, very even. Moving on to blush, I'm using a stick one from ColourPop. I'm going to again deposit it onto my hand first, so I'm only picking up a little bit afterwards. I then follow this pattern to basically pull the top half of my face upward. It makes everything look really warm and much more natural than it would to go with a whole bunch of contour and bronzer and everything in between. But I just take this fluffy brush here and just start blending the blush totally upwards. For someone like me who has a lot more pointed features, using a circular pattern will tone it down a little bit, so if you have that same thing as I do, I recommend using more circular movements with your brush. And of course, once you're done, it will look like this, and then we want to set it with a setting powder. I use the e.l.f. one just because it's super cheap, and basically what you're going to do is load up the biggest fluffy brush you have and just start putting it all over your face. The plan here is to set everything so you can wear this look all day, and so that way it doesn't transfer to your fingers if you accidentally rub your face or scratch something. Everything should be super matte at this point, and as you can see, nothing comes off when I'm done. From here, I'm going to take a flat brush as well because I like to bake underneath of my eyes and around my mouth. So what this is going to do if you've never baked before is kind of set any areas that would crease and make it so they stay super dry and locked in all day. You can do any areas if you want, but I follow this. While we let this sit for a few minutes, we're going to do our brows. I'm going to be using some eyeshadow today because I think it's a little bit easier to match colors, and taking an angled brush, I'm going to very, very lightly deposit color into the top of the brow and then pull it downwards. Mine are very thin, but if you have a thicker brow, this look will work the same way. Just know that as you go, you will need a little bit of product on the brush. And when you're done, you're going to take whatever brow gel you like. Again, I'm just using some drugstore e.l.f. products and pulling everything upwards and outwards. This kind of solidifies the blending part of your brows. Now we can wipe away all that powder since it's been sitting for a bit, and again, everything is always up, 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 so that way you're pulling your features towards your hairline. You also want to make sure things stay a little bit brighter underneath of your eyes. And we'll be returning the highlighter at the end of the video. From here, we're going to move on to our eyeshadow, which is going to be very pointy on the ends. I'm going to start with a super light pinkish orangey tan shade, if that makes sense. Something close to your skin color that's going to be used to blend everything together. From there is when we're going to start getting into the actual color. We're going to be using a orangish tan, so make sure you're getting something more warm tone for today. You want to go in a pattern where you're finding the spot you want your point to be in first, your little wing, and drawing a diagonal to there onto the lid of your eye. Then you're going to fill in everything around it using that point you made as a guide. As you can see, we have a nice little point here. We're going to accentuate it by going under the eye and then replicating the same steps on the other side. It's most important to make sure that your points are as even as possible, but you can go back in and fix them too. From there, I'm going to take this brick orange shade. We're going to use that to deepen the corner and the creases here. Basically just making a smaller wing on the inside of the one you just made. Taking a blending brush, I'm going to go outwards once again, pulling it up into the wing very, very lightly. This will give that dramatic smoky look. When you get to the other side, you want to once again follow the guidelines you already set by having those even wings and replicate the same exact steps underneath and on top. Again, you'll blend upwards towards the corner of your wing, and then we're going to switch to an even darker brown to accentuate this even more. I'm using a very small brush here to make sure this is defined, and while it's very hard to see the difference here, once you start packing the color in and you end up zooming out, you'll see how much of a difference that dark brown makes. Go underneath with this as well, making sure to blend in between every step. And of course, like I said, replicate everything on the other eye. And be very gentle when you blend so you don't take anything too far down. A dabbing motion helps. From here, I'm going to take this super bright orange on a flat brush, and this is what we're going to use on the inner corner of our eye. You're going to start on the inside and move all the way up and over the lid, blending this orange out until it blends in very nicely with the wing you created. It's important to make this part super defined, as opposed to your smokier wing, so that way all of the attention gets put onto the inside. From there, I'm going back to my other palette to take this shimmery gold shade, and that's just going directly on the inner corner to sort of brighten up the look and make things really sharp. Don't worry about any messes that you make, we're going to clean up before we move into eyeliner. Once you're done, you should have eyeshadow that looks pretty similar to this. Next up is your eyeliner. Again, I'm just using some more e.l.f. ones, and you want to follow the shape that fits your eyes the best here. I basically make a very thin line and start to pull it up slightly below where the wing of the eyeshadow is. The juxtaposition here of having a wing slightly below the smoky eyeshadow wing kind of creates a sharper cat eye than what you get if you put it all together. As you go, of course, eyeliner could be really tricky, especially if you're like me and your eyes are at two different angles, so I like to just set a base on both sides and then go in and touch them up after. I also do a cat eye on the inside with a small little point connecting to both sides. Yours does not have to look like this, but this is mine when it's done. And I always add a small beauty mark too. From there, I'm going to add some white to my waterline, not to make everything stark white, but to blend the orange in that's already there. For lashes, again this is all personal preference, but I like to curl mine first before putting mascara on. I'm using this Essence one where the label has completely ripped off, and I like to go in 2 coats usually to make sure everything is super thick and really volumized. I do top and bottom lashes, but again, personal preference, do whatever you feel the most comfortable doing, and I make sure that everything stays away from my skin and I let it dry. From there, I'm going to put some chapstick on before I do my lipstick just to make sure everything is moisturized. For lipstick, I'm using a warm toned brown, and I'm going to start by defining my Cupid's bow. I think for this type of look where you have a really bold eye, it's really important to have a bold lip to go along with it. Defining your Cupid's bow will help make the angles pop out a little bit more, and then as you pull things down, you want to very, very slightly overline your lips. So start by filling everything in and smacking it all together, classic lipstick application, and then very gently go slightly over where your lips are. I'm talking like very, very slightly. From there, I'm adding some falsies, but again, if you don't like to wear them, this will look just as good without them. If you're using falsies, let your glue dry a little bit, and then you'll stick them very gently to the center of your eye. Since you have a wing, you can be a little more generous on how high you stick the lash. Just make sure that it stays within your eyeliner so everything blends in correctly. Pull the inner corners together, and then make sure that both lashes sit at the same spot of your eyes. We're going to add our highlighter now, taking a rosy gold sort of shade to bring all the warmth in together. Make sure you go over your nose, your cheeks, and your brow bones.
So, for clothes, I'm thinking we do this big knit turtleneck, which is a totally mistake to not have put on first, but it matches pretty close with all these shades, so we're gonna go with this. And then I just have these little cuffed, I guess they're closer to capris than jeans. We're gonna throw these underneath, and then I'm gonna put on some jewelry.
And that concludes today's look. Thank you all so much for watching. I wish you a happy Thanksgiving. Have fun spending time with your family, or with your friends, or whoever you're spending the day with. Follow me on Instagram, Depop, and TikTok for some more content, as well as to purchase any of my crochet items. From there, I will see you next Sunday at 1 p.m. Bye-bye!